All right. All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here today. I'm very excited to be back here in beautiful, sunny San Francisco. It's been 6 years since we sailed out here through the Golden Gate with one goal: to develop the technology to rid the world's oceans of plastic. And now we're back with tons of plastic on deck and some very exciting news to share with you today. Because today we can finally answer the question, what does it concretely take to clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch? So this is what we're talking about. So out there, really not too far away from here, lies the largest accumulation zone of trash on Earth. And this is an area where currents converge, creating a giant vortex of sorts, where the plastic can enter, but it can never leave. It's like the Hotel California of the ocean. And we were the first at the Ocean Cleanup to actually completely map the area from pieces small to large. And what we found was that this area spans an area twice the size of Texas, and that it contains more than 200 million pounds of plastic. We also found that we even found plastic that actually dates back to the 1960s, which really goes to show how persistent this plastic is, especially if you consider that we didn't use that much plastic back then. So, of course, to clean the ocean, to rid the oceans of plastic, we need to prevent more plastic from going into the ocean in the first place. And this is something we are also working on. But if that's the only thing we do, the ocean will be polluted forever because of this persistency. That's why we have to take it out. That's really the only way in which we can get back to clean oceans. And so there really shouldn't be any debate whether we should do prevention or cleanup. We just have to do both. And that's why at the Ocean Cleanup, we have this two-pronged strategy where, on one hand, we deploy interceptors in rivers to intercept the plastic before it can even reach the ocean. But in parallel, we're also working on cleaning up the 60 years of plastic pollution, the legacy pollution that's already out there and doesn't go away by itself. Because every day this plastic remains in the ocean, it can do a tremendous amount of harm. First of all, of course, there's the environmental impact, where it's really ravaging ecosystems. Right now, there are already more than 100 species threatened with extinction, in part because of this plastic pollution. And it's also an expensive problem, actually. So just in 2019, a study came out that shows that the cost of having plastic pollution in the ocean is actually up to $2.5 trillion in terms of lost ecosystem services. And then there's also the time pressure, because the longer, so actually right now, most of the plastic, about 92%, are large objects. But the longer the plastic remains in the ocean, the more that stuff fragments down to smaller and smaller microplastics, which are, first of all, pretty much impossible to ever get out, but also are much easier to end up in the food chain. And that, of course, includes the 3 billion people around the world that are dependent on marine life or fishing as their primary source of protein. So it should be obvious that we must clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. But how? That is the question we set out to answer when we sailed out here 6 years ago with our very first ocean cleanup system, System 1. Now, it was a beautiful sunny day, San Francisco just like today, but we took it out, and then things didn't go exactly according to plan. Because first of all, we weren't collecting plastic, which, as you can imagine, is a pretty important requirement for an ocean cleanup system. And if you thought it couldn't get any worse, just a few months later, the system actually broke into two. And what followed then were some of the hardest months we've ever experienced. Of course, it was a struggle to get everyone and everything back to land safely. Team morale was at an all-time low, and we were also pretty much running out of money at that point in time. So pretty bad. But fortunately, it was great to see how the team came back together and went back to the drawing board. And then we managed to actually get back to the patch just a few months later with a slightly modified design, System 1B. And with it, we finally collected our first plastic. But then we did the math, and it turned out that actually the rate at which we were collecting plastic was so low that you would literally need hundreds of these systems to clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, which would just be, of course, an operation nightmare. These things were free-floating, so sometimes they would also float out of the patch. So it would be like herding cats. It would just be a big mess. So we then decided to go back to the drawing board again, which resulted in System 2. And with System 2, the big change here was that we actually added vessels to the system to tow the system forth, which not only allowed us to sweep a much larger surface area, but it also allowed us to steer the system to where we want to go, where most of the plastic is. And with it, we were finally able to repeatedly harvest large amounts of plastic. But we also know that to truly make the cleanup viable, we had to go much bigger. And this led to System 3, our first full-scale ocean cleanup system, which we deployed for the first time about a year ago. Now, System 3 is truly massive. It's about 1.4 miles in length, which is roughly the same length as the Golden Gate Bridge, actually. And when it's deployed in the ocean, it sweeps an area the size of a football field every 5 seconds. And we now have completed 22 operational trips. We've, with that, cleaned up an area of 17,000 square kilometers, which is roughly the size of the state of New Jersey. We have with that, we've removed more than 1 million pounds of plastic, which is roughly 0.5% of what is out there. And if we go to the video, here, this is basically how it works. So we have this very long system. We have these two wings that act like a funnel to bring the plastic towards the center, where you have this retention zone, which is basically a giant bag of sorts, where we funnel the plastic. That's where it's retained. Before every few days, we bring it on deck, and then we empty it and then sort it for recycling. And I don't think I ever get enough of seeing these images. It's and actually every time we post these videos, they always go viral. So I don't think I'm the only one that thinks this is extremely satisfying to look at. And actually, this the extraction you're seeing here was an 18-ton extraction. So that means that you really just have to repeat this 5,000 times, and then the Great Pacific Garbage Patch will be gone. So 5,000 times, that's what we need to do. So what does it take to do that? Of course, that's the real question here. And actually, today I'm very proud and excited to share with you that the results of the past 12 months of operations have now proven that we can clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch in a responsible way in 10 years' time at a cost of $7.5 billion. I realize there's a lot to unpick here, so let's take it step by step. Let's start with the responsible bit. So, of course, the ocean cleanup was founded really with one reason, so just to solve an environmental problem. So, of course, the last thing we want is create a new one in the process. So that's why we have designed this cleanup system to be inherently safe for marine life. Firstly, it moves through the ocean at a very slow speed, about half your walking speed, which is slow enough so that marine life can get out of the way. We've also fitted the system with acoustic deterrents, with lights, with escape routes, and we even now have an activated hatch that we can activate remotely to close the system in case we see anything enter that shouldn't. And all of this has been paying off tremendously. So what we see is that with System 3, actually 99.3% of what we catch is the plastic. And most of that other 0.7% are actually invasive species. So are really of lesser concern. And these results are currently undergoing peer review. Now, the next thing is, of course, that when you tow these systems through the oceans, you're going to require a lot of energy. And in turn, we do emit CO2 into the atmosphere. But here too, the numbers are actually looking very, very good. So to clean up the whole of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, turns out that that's going to result in a carbon footprint of around 90 kilotons of carbon per year. And to put this into context, that's about the same amount, and we looked this up, the town of Wheatland, Wyoming, which has a population of 3,300. It's a beautiful, beautiful town. But honestly, I think we will be able to survive another Wheatland worth of carbon emissions. And what's more, this year, it's good to point out, this year there were a few studies that came out that actually show that the plastic in the ocean is interfering with the ocean's ability to take up carbon from the atmosphere. So it might actually even turn out that the cleanup is going to be carbon positive. So this is something we're going to do more research on in the coming period. And then when it comes to the time and the money it would take, I really want to make clear here, this is what we can do right now. So take the average performance of the past 12 months, multiply that with a fleet of systems, let them operate for 10 years, and the patch will be gone. So if we get the money, we could do this today. So fundamentally, really the only thing standing between us and clean oceans is money. So, and that's a really big deal, because until today, you could be the world's richest person, you could be the most powerful country on Earth, but you wouldn't have been able to clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. But now you can, at a price of $7.5 billion. So that's what it takes to clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch today. However, we're not satisfied yet. Considering the urgency of the problem, we of course want to go faster. And fortunately, we found an opportunity to do just that. And for this, it's actually quite important to understand that the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is not a homogeneous mass of plastic. It's patchy, actually. So if you were to take a boat through the garbage patch, there would actually be quite a few days that you would see hardly any plastic around your boat. And then there are days, of course, when you see tons and tons of plastic around your vessel. And those are what we call the hotspots. So the trick really is here to consistently steer through those hotspots. So for those who remember the Nokia phones, it's a bit like playing the world's largest game of Snake or Pac-Man or something like that. So this is kind of what we want to do. And of course, we have already been trying to do this on a rudimentary level. But it turns out that we can actually do a lot better than that. Because if we truly know where the plastic is, our computer modeling shows that we can actually improve the performance of every cleanup system that's out there by a factor of 5. But for that, of course, we need to actually measure where the plastic is in real time. So what we're currently developing are methods to use GPS trackers to emulate how the plastic behaves through the ocean, to thereby guide us to the places where those hotspots are. And we're also working on drones that are fitted with AI-powered cameras to directly measure the concentrations of plastic at sea. So these would be launched from the vessels, and they would scan the surface around our operation to make sure we can do those fine-tuned adjustments of our course. So, and actually we have already been doing trials with both these GPS trackers as well as with drones. So now it's really about scaling this up and about integrating this into our operation. Now, this 5x improvement that I mentioned, that's really what our models show can be done in theory. But to be on the conservative side, our working assumption is actually to assume a factor of 2. And the reason for that is that we actually know that a factor of 2 is possible, because that is something, in a way, we're already doing at this very moment. So right now, that's the concentration, that's the performance we see in our best extraction runs that we've already done. So of the past half year. So it's really just about being in those concentrations consistently now. So what this means is that when we take our current achieved level of performance and we add hotspot hunting to that, we predict it is possible to clear the Great Pacific Garbage Patch in half the time at almost half the cost. So that means 5 years and $4 billion. So this is going to be our focus for the coming year. We're going to invest 1 year to save 5. It's a no-brainer, right? And just to put this price tag into context, this $4 billion, that's the same amount humans currently are spending on gourmet pet food every year. It's less than half the amount that America is spending on Halloween decorations every year. It's the same amount as was spent on military expenditures in just the last 10 hours. It's less than 0.25% of the net worth of the 10 richest people on Earth, and it's under 1% of the net profits of the world's plastic producers over the course of the cleanup. Now, I'm not saying, to be clear, that we shouldn't spend money on Halloween decorations. We love Halloween, but I do think this goes to show that cleaning up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is something we should be able to afford. And most importantly, the cost of cleaning up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, the cost of solving plastic pollution, it's really just a fraction of the harm plastic pollution is doing to our world year in, year out. So what this means is that it's actually cheaper to clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch than to not do the cleanup. Now, with the cleanup of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, I believe we humans have the opportunity to do something truly great. For humanity to thrive, we need to be optimistic about the future. And these days, there's just so much fatalism going around, especially about the environment, especially amongst people of my generation. And I think once we have cleared up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, it's just going to be the most inspiring thing. It's going to be this thing you can point to, not of how much we've messed things up, but rather as an example that we humans can solve the big problems of our time. And we will have done it not by being angry against the things that we don't want to see, but rather by building towards the future that we do want to see. So, over the past 10 years, thanks to the incredible work of the team and the support of everyone that has backed us all around the world, all our partners, we have now been able to give the world the tools it needs to clean up the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. When this cleanup starts, it's really up to you. So we now call upon the world, the governments, the companies, individuals, to make this cleanup happen. Thank you.